Hey there! Welcome to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. With your host, Chuck T.
Hey there, what's going on? Welcome to the show. It's the Middle Age Crazy Podcast, and we are the show that proves being an adult does not have to suck. I'm Chuck T. I appreciate you tuning in, and don't forget, we're the show that on the 1st and 15th of every month, most of the time, we help interesting people tell their incredible stories. Yes, the show is a few days late. I apologize. Big thanks to my man Scott Lapshire, who broke down the wild world of dentistry on our last episode. And this one's a little late. So I apologize. We're a couple days late. I usually don't do that. We've only skipped one episode in almost an entire year. So I feel like we have a pretty good track record. But the thing is, I started a new job this week. And starting a brand new job from home, working remotely, it played out to be pretty interesting. I love the new gig. I love the people I'm working with. But I was super busy this week, so that's my bad. All right, hit you with the business. Find us on social media at Middle Aged Pod. I'll be honest with you, we ain't got squat for followers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. We need the help. Come on, follow us, especially on Twitter. I guarantee I will follow you back. I don't give a shit how lame your profile is. I'll follow you back. If you need to send an email, middleagedcrazypod@gmail.com. And of course, you can find the show wherever you can find podcasts. When in doubt, middleagepod.com. Oh yeah, can't forget about the hotline. I'm harping, and I'm yelling every week for someone to give me a call on the hotline. I don't even give a squat what you say. I want you to give me a call at 515-478-3412. And I'm excited to announce our very first caller. I got a message on the hotline. I have a pretty good feeling that the message I got was from my nephew in high school. But you know what? I'll take it. Fuck it. No one calls in. At least my nephew's supporting me. So I'm pretty sure it's you, Sam. So if it is, high five, bro. Let's roll it.
Hey, what's up, Middle Age Crazy? I'm just here wondering, what is your favorite restaurant local in Iowa? Thanks a lot. Love the show.
All right, he wants to talk about food in Des Moines. Let's get down to it. I can't lie, when I moved from Minneapolis to Des Moines, I was a little skeptical about the food scene because I enjoy food, the wife enjoys food, we like eating out, we're quasi-foodies, we're big cooks in this house. Well, I should say my wife's a big cook. I run the grill and the smoker. I do smoke a mean brisket and a mean rack of ribs too, don't get me wrong. But we're into food in this house. But if we're talking fine dining, there's two places I want to mention. For starters, if I'm gonna get a steak, I'm going to Fleming's. I've been there, I think once or twice, went with the family, couldn't complain, the food was dynamite, reasonably priced for a steakhouse, very happy. Once all this Corona bullshit ends, I'll go back. The other place is the Flying Mango. Yes, that's correct, that's the name of the restaurant, the Flying Mango. I went and had some barbecue there with an old buddy one time a few years ago, right when I moved to town. And it was one of the best briskets I've ever had in my life. Very impressed. I like the fact that it's a small joint. They're not open normal hours. I mean, you can't just go in anytime and sit down. You have to really plan it out. But dynamite food, great service. I cannot wait for COVID to get done so I can go grab some more food from the Flying Mango. And if I'm just talking everyday food, local favorites, huge fan of Tasty Tacos. They do the deep fry where they deep fry the flour tortilla for your shell, but it's the first place I've actually been to that puts beans in the taco meat. So I was impressed right away, and I love the hot sauce. So Tasty Tacos is pretty tight. And my last place for local, I'll probably go with Bebop's. It's a burger joint. It's a drive-through burger joint. That's it. They got killer fries. I love the chocolate shake there, and it's right down the road from my house, which makes it very dangerous. And my dog likes the French fries too. All right, that's it. That's my opinion on food here in Des Moines. Why don't you give me a call at 515-478-3412? I'll put you on the show, and we'll talk some shit. Just call me. All right, let's move on, and we'll start talking about my guest, Clint Fuller. It's all about coaching, volunteer coaching, coaching other people's kids. I have no idea why someone would want to do it, but I applaud people that do it. And my man Fuller's a really good friend of mine. We've known each other for over 20 years. We were in a band together, all that. So this conversation is going to be pretty loose. But he's been super into coaching his daughters in softball, basketball, stuff like that. And it's changed, man. Youth sports has changed quite a bit since I played. And since I have a 3-year-old, I'm really kind of out of touch. I had no idea about travel ball and stuff like that. So we get into all of it. You'll see I'm pretty much confused most of the way. And I even got a chance to talk to his daughters. And I'm going to tack on at the end of the conversation. I asked them a few questions about having the old man as the coach. So they're pretty entertaining. This is a great interview. Sit back, relax. We're going to chat with my old buddy, Clint Fuller. It's all about volunteer coaching today, baby. Let's do it.
My name is Clint Fuller. I'm 43 years old. I live in the Waterloo Cedar Falls area, and I am a volunteer coach.
All right, let's get this interview rolling. Talking to one of my oldest, bestest friends, Clint Fuller. He's going to talk about not only being a volunteer coach, but why the hell somebody would actually want to volunteer their time for other people's kids. It blows my mind. It's a completely foreign concept to me. Functified Clint Fuller, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I spent a little time at the ballpark today, so it's a good day.
Of course you did, crackhead. You couldn't wait to get out there.
It's the quarantine's been really hard on a lot of people, and the whole non-live sports thing for me has been a challenge. So living here in the state of Iowa, we have a rare opportunity for kids to play sports, and so I take advantage of it when I can. So, yeah.
Yes, of course, obviously, we're friends on Facebook because we're good friends, and it went from no kind of – it's almost like you fell up – it's almost like, you know what, you've been clean of heroin for several years through the quarantine, miserable as shit, but you're clean, and now they're opening back up, and you guys are already out there nicking around, right?
Yeah, so in the state of Iowa, the Department of Education had allowed for summer sports in the state of Iowa. And the state of Iowa is unique in the sense that we play baseball and softball here in the summer, where most states in the union do not. They play in the fall or the spring. So it was a really interesting decision to allow such things to happen. But once the high school thing kind of took the lead, then youth sports followed. And there are a lot of overlapping kids that do both, which presented our teams, some challenge this year, even though we did get to play a little bit. So today, I just went and watched ball. I didn't even coach, or I didn't have a kid. One of my buddies was coaching here in town locally, and baseball actually, and just went and took in a game. It was good fun.
What have you all coached? Because you got 2 daughters.
Correct.
What have you?
2 daughters, yep.
What have you all coached so far for them?
So for them, it started with t-ball, both of them, and basketball for Addison. Adrian took an interest in softball a little later. She actually signed. There was one chance I had to coach them both on the same team. And it was when Adrian was 4 and she was too shy and went to the first practice and decided not to play that season.
Right on.
So that's when it started, more or less. And then with Addison, it's been basketball and softball, both. Basketball tailing off a couple years ago.
I got to ask you, because you know me, man.
Yeah, dude, laid out. This is a conversation between friends. This is exactly how I expect this to go. So
why the fuck would you want to do it? Because I grew up, I played baseball most of my life. My old man was my little league coach, and he was fucking miserable the entire time. He was miserable. Why? Why sign yourself up for any of this shit?
I don't, I can probably relate with that on a couple of moments I can think back. But honestly, the good outweighs the bad moments all the time. I like working with kids. When we were at UNI together, I was actually going to be a teacher for a little bit there, and before I dropped out of school. And so I really honestly, I wanted to coach more than I wanted to teach, and that was kind of the way that you had to get in, was to be a teacher. So I wanted to teach, and I enjoy what the weird things about sports, like mechanics and team bonding and all the stuff you get from sports that kind of secondary, I guess, other than being on the field, So why would I do it with other people's kids? Yeah. Well, there's always a volunteer shortage everywhere in the world, no matter what it is. And if you have a little bit of knowledge in something and you can share it with the younger generation, I think that's important regardless of what it is. I wasn't a fantastic ball player by any means, but I always enjoyed the team sports, and I always enjoyed what kids get out of each other when they do something common, even if they might come from completely different backgrounds, so.
Okay. What was the first thing that you jumped? What did you start with? Basketball or softball? I can't remember.
T-ball.
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 Oh, okay.
T-ball, yeah. And T-ball's kind of like it's a mixed, kids, boys and girls together.
Yeah.
It's where the kid runs, to third base instead of first, and his helmet's too big and all that stuff. And it's great. It's cute. You're going to do this here in a year or two. And it's going to be awesome, and you're going to love it.
Luckily, I'm not going to lie, and we can kind of talk about it, but I got fingers crossed. I don't want my kid to do any of that sports shit. I want it to be inside stuff like music and choir and theater and stuff that doesn't travel and it's inside.
Yeah, she'll choose her own way, obviously. I know she's done a little soccer and basketball, right? A little bit, right?
Yeah.
Just a little soccer shot.
Loves that
like
shit.
So, which is organized beehive, more or less, but yeah, I mean, it started off with T-ball and kind of progressed into the next year. Oh, you helped last year. Can you help this year? Type thing. That's how all the volunteer stuff goes. But I'm a competitive person, 100% competitive person. You know that when you, as much time as you spent with me. But I think it's important that kids have a chance to kind of learn stuff along the way and don't have to be awesome at it. So it starts with rec sports, and it's kind of moved up to travel ball now is what they call it, for what Addison does. And Adrian, she did her little spin with softball there for a couple of years, and she went out on a high note as a city champ, and she was like, I'm good enough, I'm done. So
sweet.
She's the art music kid, and I mean, and I have a lot of that in myself too. So I love that in her.
She's like, I'm going to Disneyland, motherfuckers. Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so you're doing the T-ball, and I kind of forgot, because I remember watching my nephew do it, and half the time they're picking flowers and shit out there. When do they move on? How old are they when they're like, okay, we're going to start pitching the ball to you, we keep score, you got to run the bases, all that bullshit?
So the keeping score thing comes a little later. The pitching to them comes right after T-ball, and it's basically coach pitch, and it's a softer kind of, I don't know if you remember the Incrediball, but it was kind of a softer baseball.
No, I don't remember it.
Softer baseball, if you got pelted with it, it didn't hurt too bad. So it's coach pitch, and then of course there you're kind of subject to how good can your coach throw strikes.
Yeah,
and that has kind of carried through even till 14U now with my daughter. I still can't throw really well pitching softball. So, but then it's there, and then it's up to they have A ball and then double A ball, and then it's basically it kind of teeters off as far as the competition level goes, and kids start seeking out travel ball.
Okay,
which is where
you're going too fast. I'm curious. How old are they when they're doing the coach pitch, and then you make the jump to everyone.
Coach pitch is like 8 and 9 years old, like second and third grade around here.
Really? Okay.
And then third and fourth range, depending on boys and girls, they start pitching to each other, in full catching gear, and the umpire goes behind the plate and actually calls balls and strikes, not from behind the pitcher where it's, if it's basically from their toes to their nose, it's a strike.
Okay.
So it gets a little more competitive as they get older, and it gets a little more, parents get a little more competitive, a lot more competitive.
I can imagine.
All of it. Yeah, all of it. And then so my daughter went to 10U softball, and that's when she started playing competitive travel ball, and that is 10 years younger. So it can be a combination of grades. And then she played 12U ball, and she's now playing 14U ball, even though she's 12U eligible. She actually plays up a division. So
Jesus, dude, you got to dial it back. You're going so fast. Then she did this, then she did this. I'm like, great, your kid's softball, I get it, but slow down.
Well, that's just the levels of competition as they go up. So
okay, so we got all these levels. Have you coached at every single level, or have you just kind of picked and choose when you wanted to participate as the coach?
Yeah, good question. Absolutely, that's a deep one. So it started off with kind of helping volunteer with the local rec program. And then out of that, some parents that were on that same team, we had a good team, good squad, decided, hey, let's put a travel ball team together. We're going to, have tryouts and that type of thing. And that's how it goes from rec to kind of travel ball. And the thing with travel ball is that you kind of get to choose, who you're going to play with and that type of thing. So travel ball kind of becomes a little bit of an all-star type thing. Mm-hmm. Unless it's a feeder program, which means it's set up by the school and supported by the school and that type of thing. And that's a little more inclusive and not quite as country club, if you will.
Okay.
So as I stated before, like as you go up in level, the competition increases a little bit. The parents get a little more invested. It gets more expensive, obviously. Equipment's not cheap. Travel's not cheap. People pay for their own hotels if you stay out of town.
Yeah,
basically.
The travel, I know, is the travel stuff is intense, and I want to definitely talk about that and kind of do a compare and contrast. Because like when you finally explained it all to me one day when we were hanging out, I was like, Jesus Christ, it's a lot different than what it was. But
yeah, it is.
Did you immediately jump on that when she was ready to do the travel stuff? Were you like, all right, I'm going to be the coach. I want to get involved in the whole thing, or how did you become the travel guy?
That is also a very interesting question. The year that they started the first program that we were with, I was asked to coach it from a parent from the rec ball team. And I didn't think Addison was ready for travel ball at that point. And I didn't think I was ready to get that competitive by any means myself as a coach.
Okay.
So I declined. I did their logo for them, helped them start their kind of identity and that type of thing. And we sat out that first year, and then coming back around in the spring, they were looking to expand the program, add another younger team, and asked if I'd be interested, and I said yes. And we stuck with that program for 2 years, and it didn't end well. Let's just put it that way. For myself, it ended okay for my kid, but that last team that I coached, kind of split up and went a bunch of different directions. So. That was the first kind of gap in coaching, if you will.
Okay, because I came up doing little league, pony league. You played for the town that you lived in. Okay, and then if we wanted to get people together for the pony league all-star kind of like the pony league World Series, we would put a couple different all-star teams together.
Sure, exactly. You'd kind of handpick a few of the best from here and here, make sure you had a couple pitchers, a couple catchers.
Yeah,
that's travel ball, more or less, in a nutshell.
And that's the only thing. And I played a total of actually one game, because I broke my leg in the very first game. But that's the only time I ever played with a bunch of people from all over the place. So when did this kind of evolution happen as far as softball for girls and baseball for boys? It went from a town ball thing to now you have, like you said, a program to where you're putting your own stuff together.
And even some programs like this particular program I was referring to in the beginning here, in the long term actually has their own training facility, like an indoor training facility with turf on the floor and nets up and a hitting station and a pitching area and a pitching machine and batting cages and the full nine. I mean, that's where it's gotten to now for some
it blows
programs,
my mind.
quote unquote. Yeah, and so there's the investment, right? So what that turns into is everybody kind of pitches in and pays for this facility, or you pay a rental fee and you have your practices in there. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but that's how far it's gotten. And it's a lot different than what you would expect and what you experienced and what I experienced as a kid. And where did it change? I don't know, but I know that when parents start throwing money around and, quasi living vicariously through their kids, this stuff grows really fast, right?
I mean, is there even such a thing as town ball anymore?
Yeah, there is. There is absolutely.
Or is that just for the reject kids that aren't trying to hey, I want to play in high school, maybe college? It's hey, I'm going out to have a few shoots and giggles, and then I'm going to move on with my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is some of that too. Okay, so that what you call town ball, I would say, is probably not as competitive, and maybe does have some athletes that are not top tier. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But they're out there trying, and they're doing their thing, and they're representing their town or whatever. That is, I think with anything, when you accelerate your competitiveness and you kind of take a step up a notch, you tend not to step back. And I know that a lot of people, when they get to the travel ball level, when they're done with it, they're done with it. They don't regress back. They don't kind of, go back to the town ball thing or go back to the rec ball. It does have a high burnout rate, to be honest with you. So because of the expense and the commitment from parents, and, when you're on the road every weekend for all of your summer or all of your winter, if it's basketball, whether it's to a small town or a big town or whatever, there's expense there with, meals and all that stuff. So it can burn parents out fast too. We can burn parents out real fast.
I know, because if you remember my old place in the last house in Minnesota, when you get off 169 and there was that big park on the right hand side, all summer it was either freaking people sitting there all weekend playing softball or soccer. That place was filled all weekend, every freaking time. And it was just,
so that's good money for that city. That's because they're renting those fields, and
just filled with parents and people. And it was almost like, I don't know, it was almost like some sort of a freaking circus going on. You know what I mean? There was just so much going on.
Bike rally.
Yeah.
There's vendors, there's t-shirt people, there's concessions, there's, and some of the cool travel ball teams. I mean, the team we were associated with here this past year, we would tailgate. Like, we would all sit out in the parking lot and grill food together and eat together. And we watched the Iowa State football game one day when we were on a tournament. And so but it does generate tons of money for those organizations and those cities that rent those fields out. I mean, and people that organize tournaments make some pretty good coin too. I mean, travel ball tournaments can cost you anywhere from some of the cheaper ones, $175 for 3 games, to $500, $600 for a state tournament.
Jesus.
And that's a 5-game guarantee.
Okay.
So umpires are expensive.
That's bonkers, man.
They're not always awesome.
Which is kind of crazy, because I look back to, and once again, I mean, I grew up in a small town. Obviously, it's kind of hard to compare, but
Sure.
But
your small town right now is bumping in travel ball.
I know, but
it really is.
But you're like, umpires are expensive. I just think back to when I was 15 years old. Me and my old homeboy Pat Burke were umping the freaking softball games. You know what I mean? I think I made like $4 or whatever. And now they're like paying dudes to come in and ump these games.
Oh yeah. There's actually an organization that runs everything. There's a couple of them. There's ASA. There's USSSA. USSSA is the bigger one. You actually, if you have a team, you pay a fee to be part of that, to get that national recognition. And when you play in certain tournaments, you get points towards your state tournament. So if you go and play in a USSSA tournament and you win, let's say, you get awarded X amount of points towards your state record. And then when you go down to state, you're seeded accordingly. So, for instance, my team played in a league last year where we were guaranteed 100 points if we played in the league. So we played in the league, and we go down to the state tournament, and the league had not reported our points. So we basically went to the state tournament with nothing underneath our belt, even though we had earned it. And it was just kind of a, I don't know what they call it, administrative snafu. But what it did is it ended up pitting my team against the other team from our program at the state tournament. And it was kind of it was a rough weekend. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So,
well, let me see here, because
it's a lot to swallow, isn't it, Harry?
Well, we're kind of all over the place, and I'm not surprised that that's the way this is going. But as far as having one of these together, because just the infrastructure alone kind of blew my mind when you were working with that team that had the facility and stuff like that. Start at square one. You're going to build a travel team. What is step one?
Okay. Step one is having a tryout.
Okay.
Step one is having a tryout and deciding who's going to coach your team. Without a coach, obviously, you don't have much. And it's hard to get parents to volunteer, man, especially if they don't have much knowledge of the game. They don't want to, teach anybody the wrong thing or be embarrassed when their kid does something wrong, to be real honest. So it starts with having a coach and having a tryout, figuring out what age a team you're going to be. Most of the time it starts with a parent that says, I got a 12-year-old kid. Let's get some of your friends together. Let's play some ball. And then you host an open tryout like this particular program we're going to be with now this weekend. And you show up with your kid, you sign up for whatever age you're going to do, you show what you got, take down some statistical data, and contact them if they're offered a spot on the team. Okay. Then after that, if somebody takes your offer, generally there's a kind of a agreement or a waiver form that they will sign that says they'll stick to certain, precautions and rules and all that type of thing, behavior, that type of thing. And also releases them from responsibility for, injury. And all these tournaments that you play in, there's a waiver for injury so that you're not going to sue, the organization if your kid runs through the fence like Chad Easton and breaks his leg. So
who's Chad Easton? I don't know who that is.
I have no idea either. I met him in college once. I don't know. Anyway, I heard he was a hell of a ball player, but he likes to run through fences. But yeah, that's where you start, and then I think every coach kind of.
Well, hold on for a second. So you want to coach a team, you got a kid or whatever, you have a tryout, you put this. Now you have I have 15 kids that are now on my team.
Way too many, but yeah.
Okay, but whatever. How do you make that official that says I officially can now, and I want to go and try playing in these other tournaments? Do you have to just like find the opportunities and say I got this squad and I want to come and play?
That's correct. Yep. And if you're, like I said, if you're registered with USSSA, they can look you up and find out, who your players are, that type of thing. Each kid that's registered with USSSA has their own history. So USSSA knows that my kid played 10U, for one program and has her whole history kind of already in there. It's kind of like your video games that you have your documented history of your individual players. USSSA has that on my kid and every other kid on our team.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very organized. I mean, it's incredibly organized, and that helps in the scholarship looks down the road. When schools are looking at kids, that type of thing, they can go all the way back to their 10U history and find out, if they what a level they played at in 10U.
Okay,
whether it's C level or A level.
So essentially, kind of making a lot of this happen is that organization. It's saying, hey,
absolutely, organization is key.
They're the ones signing off and saying this is a real team, this is a real facility, this is a real, or like a real diamond, this is a real tournament. They're the ones.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
That's that.
Sure. And if those are the sanctioned ones, like in the town ball tournaments, like you talked about before, like I could throw 9 kids together with no uniforms and we can go play in a tournament as long as you pay the entry fee.
Oh, really? Okay.
If it's non-sanctioned. Oh, yeah. If it's non-sanctioned, it's a little more free-flowing.
Okay.
So, for instance, my kid this year has been kind of floating as a free agent, playing for a couple of different teams because her season was virtually eliminated by COVID-19. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's been a real interesting year.
No, but now it kind of makes sense to me, though, the sanction versus non-sanction. How many quote-unquote governing bodies are there that are putting this softball shit together, or is there just one for the state?
There's a couple in the state, but USSSA is kind of what happens more down around the bigger cities.
Okay.
Up here, there's a little more ASA, which is American Softball Association. It's just different governing body, little different rules.
Okay.
Ironically, they have different stamps on their bats. So, like, if you go to a USSSA tournament and you don't have a USSSA stamp on your bat, it's an illegal bat.
Oh, wow.
And we've actually had that happen in a tournament, which was funny because this girl that was playing for us, she's a monster. She's a beast. And she rakes a triple off the fence, and the other coach comes out and goes, I think that's an illegal bat. It doesn't have the right stamp. And it turned out she was accurate. It was an illegal bat for that tournament. But we had gotten used to playing so many tournaments in a row, that we didn't say, hey, Kay, you got to take your bat and use a different bat. And so So they couldn't do anything about that particular play because they didn't catch it before, she hit the ball. Well, the next time she comes up, of course, they're looking at her bat, right? And so she grabs another bat and she writes another triple. So
I thought you were going to say they were going to take it away, the triple away. I'm like,
no,
did you go all George Brett Pine Tar on them, or what?
I have had my George Brett Pine Tar moments as a coach. I'm not going to lie. I wear it right on my sleeve, dude. Straight up.
Oh, that's hilarious. But that makes sense now. I was wondering, I'm like, well, who's in charge of this shit? And I guess I should have just opened up with that. Who's in charge of this? So that makes sense. So now there's these different softball organizations.
Correct.
Okay, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Tell me though, how do you go from, hey, here's my crew, we're sanctioned to go play these tournaments, to that next step of like, oh no, we have a facility. There's a batting cage and there's all kinds of stuff. How do you get to that next level?
That's a good question. I do think when you get a lot of people together, you get a lot of different ideas, and out of those different people, you get leaders as far as motivation goes. You get leaders as far as financial support goes. I do feel like financial support drives a lot of travel ball, and it also kind of drives the appeal for some people. You do have parents that want all of that for their kid right off the bat, and you have parents that are maybe not so invested in it. And so it's harder for them to come up with $30 a month to go practice in the middle of the winter, or whatever it is. But it's an acceleration thing that's maybe too much for some, but like for this particular program that we were with originally, there were kids from 10 years old up to 16. And so they would lease out the building to other organizations to use when we weren't in there to help offset the cost of the mortgage. But ultimately, it came down to good old-fashioned socialism. Everybody pitches in, and everybody gets a piece. Ultimately, with some of those facilities, if it's a retail facility like where you and I could walk in and take some cuts on a Saturday, that runs a little differently than if it belongs to a program exclusively, because people have keys and that's it. It can get out of hand, man. I mean, it really can. I think our last year here, where we kind of simplified it a little bit, was a little more user-friendly for my family. And I don't know that that's for everybody. But we traveled about 30 miles one time a week to have batting practice in the middle of the winter inside. And that was enough. It didn't have to be 2, 3, 4 times a week, 2 hours in the middle of the winter, practicing for 6 months to come up to a season that's only going to be 2.5 months long. That's how kids get burnt out, in my opinion.
I was going to say, when is it too much? Because it seems like that's a lot.
Good question.
Like my neighbors, they got a kid that plays baseball. They got a couple of them, and they are gone all the time. And they got a little
all the time.
And I always hear the kid taking cuts in the back, and that's great. Like I was really into when I played baseball, and my dad was the coach. We always did grounders at home, and whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. But this is
when is it too much?
This seems like, but when season was done, the season was done. You know what I mean? You walked away and you moved on to whatever. We played soccer now or whatever. Now it seems like the season's never over.
That's a very good point. It leads into something that I would like to maybe talk about a little bit tonight, and that is specialization. And that's where a kid gets, whether, you see it a lot with gymnastics or kind of the year-round indoor sports where they're playing all the time and they're never stopping and they're never kind of giving their body a rest. And that's when injuries happen. It's when burnout happens. It's when, the space between a parent and their athlete can get wider and wider if it's about doing it for the parent and not for the athlete. So specialization, like I said, like where a kid decides I'm going to play baseball at 10 years old and that's all he's going to do for the rest of his life. You're going to reuse those same muscles and bones and all that stuff over and over and over again. And that's when you start seeing injuries in kids in long term. I mean, kids having Tommy John surgery when they're in high school, stuff like that. I mean, that's it. When is it too much? That's a good question. I think that's something all of us parents ask ourselves every season. And I think it's something our coaches, have to be cognizant of, because some coaches are are super intense, and they're up in your business every day, reminding you, hey, do this, try this, do this to get better, blah, 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 blah. And that can be too much for some people. And then others are just like, hey, we're playing on Saturday, we're having practice on Wednesday, and it's literally a hit grounders and just hit a little bit off the pitcher, and that's your practice. So you got to kind of find what fits you and fits your child and fits what you're trying to get done in the long term for their benefit, and go that route.
But is it kind of assumed if your kid is playing travel ball, quote unquote travel ball, that they're a diehard, or is that just a bad assumption on my part? Like they're ready to be.
I don't know that we can paint with that wide of a brush, man. Because I've actually coached some kids in travel ball that will never play at the high school level.
Okay.
That and maybe they're not there for their happiness or benefit. Maybe they're there because their older sister played, or their older brother played, or mom and dad want you to be involved in something, through the summer. So this is what we're going to do,
okay.
Or whatever. There's a lot of different reasons that people play, and a lot of different reasons that parents have kids play or in a particular organization. I know that I hope that I might be able to coach some kids this year that I've coached in the past, because I know what I get with those kids, and I know what I get with those parents. Every year is kind of a roll of the dice when it comes to parents getting along and parents expecting what they should expect of a coach, and staying out of the way, and letting the coach and letting their athlete kind of learn the game by themselves without having mom and dad in their ear on the way home about, well, why didn't you slide here? Or why didn't you do this? Or whatever. So it's different for everybody. And I do think that when you ask the question, when is it enough? No, I don't know when it stops.
Well,
I really don't.
Because to me, it's like, unless you plan on, okay, I want to play high school and college sports, why the heck would you even bother with the travel stuff? It just seems like a lot of time, effort, money, and commitment, for something that's just a hobby and not necessarily a passion.
Those are all very good points. But like I said, for some parents, it is, somewhat living out the dreams that they didn't, because they didn't have the opportunity to play ball, or maybe they did and it didn't go as well for them as they wanted it to, or maybe, like, for instance, with me, I've been coaching my kid since she was 4. This is a big bonding thing for us, for my daughter and I.
Yeah.
And it's something that's, until you experience it and then don't get to do it with them anymore, and you have to watch from the outside, it's tough, man. And the last year was actually really kind of hard watching for the first time. It was relaxing, don't get me wrong. And it was great not having to haul, 3 teams full of shit everywhere all the time, and making sure that the lineup's filled out correctly and everybody's got their waiver signed and we all have red socks on today, and that type, and a belt and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because you know how I am. I want to do it. And I want to do it because I want to do it right. Well, with that comes all the responsibility as well. And also, when you expose yourself like that, by taking all the kind of the duties, it can be seen as selfish, or it can be seen as, again, living vicariously through your child, whatever. But at least I know, like, if I'm going to set out and do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it from top to bottom, and it's going to be right. And I don't have anyone else to blame when it goes wrong. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes sense. I just the thought, knowing the nature of people, right? And,
some people suck.
Yeah, and having to, here's a group of young people, and we have this collective objective we have to make, and everyone has to be at this place at a certain time with certain things.
Yeah.
I could just imagine what it's like. Kids showing up without shoes and shit.
Well, for the most part, when they're doing the travel ball thing, they're actually kind of like financially committed, so they actually got their head screwed on most of the time.
Okay.
But we actually had an app that we kept in touch with everybody on.
Oh, cool.
And it was kind of like a social media app, but it was only for our team. And you could also put in the schedule, our practice times. I had everything down to uniform combinations.
Oh, right.
Because we had different color tops and bottoms and socks and that type of thing. And so I'd say, hey, we're wearing uniform A. Monday night, you'd be amazed how many people would still show up in uniform B, So it's just like anything. Even the smartest people and the most invested people miss things and miss details because sometimes when they don't have to do anything other than to show up, they forget about to do anything and they just show up. So on the other extreme, I literally one season was told, hey, we're getting your emails, we're getting the team snap, which was the app thing. I got your text. That's enough, like back off a little bit. But those are the same people that would miss the most obvious stuff too. So communication is really important. And what you think about when you're a coach, especially in travel ball, is you might have 10 to 12 kids, but you also have 2 parents for each one of those kids. And so you're dealing with their communication, their behavior, their wants and needs for their child, their understanding that what you're doing is a mentorship, so they don't want you to act a fool, or be Billy Martin out there, which I had a tendency to be on occasion. I'm a competitive guy. I want my kids to win, but most of the time, anytime that I was getting a little feisty, it was because we were getting screwed.
Well, of course, right?
I probably took a few words out of Ed's playbook, but. Dude. I never saw Ed coach, but I can imagine. I can imagine.
Oh my God. They'd put him in jail today. This is no joke. I remember in 6th grade, the only time we had a decent, I've never played on a winning sports team ever. I've played every sport, at least at some level, right? Minus hockey or whatever. I've never played on a winning team ever. Except for
I'm so sorry for you, bud.
The one year that we made it to the quarterfinals or whatever in the baseball tournament or whatever. And it was one of the last years Ed coached me. But no, we're in 6th grade and I could just, he used to yell at us. But he nicknamed one of the kids, he called one of the kids on the team a dildo. And then the rest of the year we called him dildo.
Oh my God.
That was his nickname, was dildo.
Oh my goodness! We haven't gone that level. I do remember from Addie's team. No, it was Adrian's team. Excuse me, Adrian's AA team. There was a girl we called Sandcastle because she played in the sand all the time.
Yeah.
And we had a team loaded full of talent, and then we had Sandcastle. And it was one of those leagues where it was everybody bats, everybody gets a chance, all that stuff.
Yay.
It's not quite Capri Suns and orange slices after the soccer match, but it's an all-inclusive league and a rec ball thing. And we embraced poor Sandcastle, but we knew what to expect from her. Hey, absolutely nothing, right? So
that's funny.
But yeah, that's kind of I will say that I personally don't ever think I went off as bad as people said I did, but hindsight's 2020, and I'm not going to indict myself over anything. So
nah, don't. I can imagine. Besides the fact of having to deal with all these personalities of these children, dealing with the parents has to be the worst part. Tell me about some shitty parents. Tell me about some cool parents. Okay.
Wow. All right. Well, I won't name any names so that the innocent are protected.
Please don't.
And the guilty are remain anonymous. But I've had some really great parents. I've had some parents that, like I said, that I started off with rec ball, and we're still working together. I've had some parents that, with one program where it was, you pay your fee for the kid for the year and literally drop them off at practice and pick them up at practice, and you'd hardly talk to them at games and all that stuff. And it's really hard to get to kind of know the kid unless you kind of know the parent a little bit, I guess, or the parents. Then you throw in, there's step parents and there's split families and there's grandmama and there's, and everybody's sports fans and everybody's got an opinion. I do think that anybody that's played the game kind of has more opinion than parents that are new to it.
Okay.
I've had some really good parents that are like, I completely trust you, do whatever you have to do. Make sure you ride her ass if she does something wrong, if she's not hustling,
okay,
if she's whatever, that have given me carte blanche and said, I trust you completely. I also have parents that have said that and didn't do that. I've had
Shocker.
Seriously, yeah, no kidding. I've had parents that, have maybe a borderline kid that's a younger kid that doesn't really want to play, but the older sister's in the program and they're invested in the building and that type of thing. And that particular kid, wasn't great by any means, but she was the nicest kid on the team, and she was the kid that rooted for everybody, and she was the kid that picked everybody up.
Yeah.
And there's crying in softball, believe it or not. And she occasionally might weep a little bit herself, but she was always the one backing everybody up that was struggling. You know what I'm saying? Parents, all right, I'm just going to say it. Sorry. Parents can ruin anything.
Well, no shit.
Anything. And it can start at home, talking about some other player on the team and how bad she throws, or it can start in the car on the way home. I can't believe your coach chewed you out for this, and immediately you're setting your child up for failure because you're telling them not to trust the person that they spend the most time with, and that's their coach.
Yeah.
And it's, I've always felt like, hey, I'm paying, X amount of dollars for my kid to be in this program, and I'm not coaching. I'm paying the program to trust the people that are going to coach my kid. Mm-hmm. There's an immediate amount of trust there that you have to just kind of assume is going to come if you don't know that person personally. Fortunately, I think with travel ball, you know a lot of kids and parents ahead of time, so you kind of get to pick your thing. But you're not going to get along with those parents on everything. I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't see eye to eye with, particular outside of sports, with a lot of parents that I come into interaction with, whether it's, how they treat their kid in private or in public, or what their politics of life are, or, what their important things are they do on the weekend. If it's a travel ball thing and you're all staying at a hotel and the point for the parents is to get wasted and kick the freaking gate off the hotel beer garden, which has happened.
Yes.
Is that fun for everybody, or is that just fun for the parents on the weekend so they can go, get drunk with their friends? I've seen it all, dude. And I tell you what, I've had who I thought were going to be the most kind of disrespectful and untrusting parents have turned out to be the best parents. And I've had the ones that I thought I trusted and knew everything about that literally turned their back on me and, said things about me that weren't true and things about our team that weren't true. And it's a competitive thing amongst coaches too. So oftentimes when parents are the coaches and parents don't get along amongst parents, you get rivalries there too. There's a particular guy around here that I literally cannot stand. And you probably saw my Facebook post about it a little while ago. I know that he taught this kid to run through the first baseman if she's not looking and she's in the way in order to gain an advantage. And that's the type of thing I hate to see a coach do in order to win.
Aren't they like 12?
Yeah, this particular girl was 13, yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
Even Pete Rose caught shit for running that dude over in the All-Star game. They're like, dude, it's the All-Star game. Chill the fuck out.
Yeah, but, baseball's a little different. That's a collision at the plate.
But I'm just saying,
that's an actual tag. That's an actual play.
That's even baseball, the All-Star game, and they're like, Pete, dial it back a little bit, all right?
Yeah.
You're at a 9. We need you at a 2.
I gotcha. And I love Pete Rose. Man, I love how he plays.
I know,
but I love kids that play that.
So
there's
someone's teaching a 14-year-old girl to do that? What an asshole.
Well, I don't know. I didn't witness him teach it in practice. But generally speaking, a coach will lead with emotion, and your team will play with emotion behind it. If a coach is stoic, a team's going to be stoic. It's just and so there's a lot of pressure when it comes to that too. Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing the right body language, or that type of thing? And rarely do you get to see yourself doing it. I can't step outside my body and watch me, give signs down at third base and my reaction when a kid strikes out on a pitch over their head. But I hope I'm not being excessively dramatic. I've been told I am before.
No,
but I own it. Yeah, no, I own it. I do think you grow as a coach too along the way, along with the kids. I'm starting to see now the first kids that I coached when Eddie first started. Some of are in high school, and doing well, and some are going to go on to play college ball and that type of stuff. I am very proud to say that team that I coached when I was a freshman in college at UNI. I don't know if you remember this, but I used to drive down to Cedar Rapids and coach with my sister my freshman year.
I remember you mentioning a coaching thing. That's about it.
Okay, yeah. So I would literally drive from Cedar Falls all the way to Cedar Rapids to coach with my sister. My sister played basketball and softball too, and it was a feeder program back then was Regis High School, but I would drive down once a week and coach fifth grade girls, and that was my first coaching experience. That group of fifth grade girls went on to be the first state championship team at Cedar Rapids Xavier.
Oh,
and
well, of course,
one of the kids on that team, her older brother, you might recognize the name, Zach Johnson, golfer.
I don't know.
Like Masters winning golfer from Iowa.
Dude, I haven't given a crap about golf in 2 decades. Sorry.
But it's so it's fun to see them. It's fun to see them kind of grow up and continue. And I think for me, how I know it's working is if the kid continues to stay in the sport, even if they don't play for me or they play for a different team the next year. So that's kind of where you hang your hat as a coach. Are they continuing to play? Are they still having fun? And do they love it? And do they not hate you when they leave? So
it just having to put in the time and the effort, I just would blow my mind. You know what I mean? Because it seems like a lot of the times, just people in general don't seem like they give a shit or are very thankful anymore.
Yes.
That it's just they're
and I would say that comes with the pay to play stuff.
Ungrateful.
I would say that comes with the pay to play.
Ungrateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I'll tell you what, the parents that are grateful, they those are the ones you remember.
But are the parents that are grateful? Is that still the one? Are those the same ones though you're having to pull off the field because he's like, oh, that wasn't a strike, screaming, yelling, or no?
I have had a couple of times where I've stood out the dugout and I said, let me coach the team, and if you don't pipe down, you need to leave. And because it becomes a distraction for the kids. It becomes oh my God, my dad's throwing a fit. I can't pay attention. Next ground ball goes through my legs. Now I get double time from dad or mom or whatever it is. So yeah, parents are assholes, man. And you know what? I've been an asshole. I've been an asshole coach at a time or two. Straight up.
Did I ever?
I'm hard on my kid. Did you ask her that question? By the way,
what's that? Did
you ask Addison that question? By the way, or Adrian, about me coaching them at all?
Yes, I did, and I didn't know how I was going to fit this into the conversation. And I don't know where I'm going to plug it into the conversation, but yes, I did talk to both of your daughters, and I asked them a couple questions, and yeah, that's exactly it. But I mean, it kind of has to be that way. My old man he rode my ass a lot too.
Sure.
Because I would,
and I think it's because we have certain expectations for how they should play the game right, be a good teammate, that type of thing. I do think some parents that are coaches have high expectations for the kid because they're concerned about their own image. And that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah. Well, no, I totally get that. My old man, I don't understand. I should ask him sometime because we laugh about some of the old stories. I don't understand why he put himself through it, because we're always terrible. To parents, we're always stupid. I mean, did I ever tell you the story about of us quitting? He just forfeited in the middle of the game, and
what?
This is classic. Okay, so we're playing. God, if any of my friends, they're gonna laugh at this. We're playing Parkview, right? And we're getting just trounced, right? We're just getting killed, right? And it was in the middle of the game, and there's like no outs. They're up to bat. The bases are loaded, and they're like cleanup hitter comes up, right? And the coach, who's a guy I ended up going to high school with, it was his father at the time, who was not a very daunting man by any stretch, and my father was fucking crazy. Anyway, the cleanup guy comes up, bases loaded. They're already beating us by a bunch, and he has the cleanup guy bunt, and my old man loses his mind to the point where they're restraining him from going over and killing the other guy because Ed could easily kill the other guy. And two, he's like, screw it, we're done. Pack your shit, kids, and we just walked off the field, and the game was over with because.
My goodness!
Because Ed was not going to take that shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm surprised he didn't kill the other coach because Ed was crazy.
There are some safeguards with the scoring in the younger levels where you can only score 4 or 5 runs per inning.
Oh, really?
So that it doesn't get out of hand. Okay. And then they have if you're up by 15 after 3, it's over. Because there's no physical way you can win. You can't score 30 runs in 3 innings. So there's some safeguards to kind of avoid that. But I can see why Ed would be, a little chapped about something like that. I will say recently Addison played against a team from Illinois that traveled 3.5 hours to small town Iowa to play because they can't play in Illinois during COVID. And they're giving us the business pretty good. And their coaches quit sending them on steals, and their coaches, on overthrows, quit sending them. And I could tell that they were coaching in a conscious way to not just kick the teeth in. And I appreciated that. And I told them that after the game. Because, these kids are still kids, and they do have feelings. I've been in a situation where we were down so many runs in a championship game, and we're just getting our butts handed to us. And it's the last game of the day, and we've still got 15 minutes to play in our time allotment. And I wanted us to bat. I wanted us to go up and get some solace for the day, score a run, whatever in the championship game, so that we just didn't leave there completely defeated because they're 10-year-old kids. And the other coach was like, "Well, I'm tired. I want to go home." And I this is probably the most intense I got with this particular person. And I yelled over him and I go, "If you don't think it's worth it for these kids to get a run and leave here with one smile on their face, then you shouldn't be doing this." Ironically, I said that to someone that I thought I was saying it to someone. I was actually saying it to his assistant coach. But that particular someone, was an arch rival of mine for a while. We didn't get along. We didn't really know each other that well at all, personally. But we coached a lot alike, and we were both competitive, and we both wanted to do the right thing and make our kids the best. And so we did not get along at all.
That's awesome. You have an arch rival.
Yes, and here's the silver lining, right? So ironically, a couple years later, I'm now going to be coaching in his program, and it took talking to each other and kind of realizing that we had common ground and we had some misunderstandings on some certain hot button, moments in time. And it's just competitiveness. And that particular person reached out to me and said, "I want you to coach one of my teams because it's hard to find people with passion and commitment and people that want to do it the right way." And I was ultimately honored by that because that particular person is very competitive and is very successful.
And then you can
what he does.
And then you can get a real good team and shove it up his ass.
Well, no, actually I won't because I'm playing within his program at a different level. So, but again, there is a bond amongst coaches, and I think it's really cool that I'm friends with so many coaches that do the exact same thing at the same level with girls, literally down the street that play for a different team. And girls from across the state that play for different teams. Today, I went and watched a baseball game of a guy that I happened to meet on social media because his niece played on a team we played against and we crossed paths. There was a guy from UNI that was an umpire one day that I just rapped with him about making some extra bucks on the weekend. And he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm a teacher coach, and my IPERS is getting cut and I need to make some coin." And come to find out he went to UNI and he's went to high school with one of our best friends, Aaron Weary. The conversations and the people you meet along the way are so interesting. And like I said, here I am now going to be coaching underneath someone that I thought would never even converse with me, at one time in my life. So it's a growing thing. As the kids grow, the coaches grow, the importance grows of what you're doing, and the value grows. Because even like I said, that one kid that was not that great on our team last year, she's an all-state singer. She's going to go on and do something fantastic. And it ain't going to be softball, but she learned how to be part of something bigger than herself, at least for one season,
Oh, that's adorable.
Oh, I wouldn't expect anything less from you, dude.
And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know how to wrap up this conversation because it's been all over the place. It did not go the way I thought it was gonna go in my head at all.
Well, let me put it this way. If Olivia ever decides she wants to pick up a softball mitt, I can show her a few things, and you won't have any guilt for not being able to do so.
God,
how about that?
I'll tell you one thing. I don't want to do is schlep her ass all over this freaking Midwest to go watch softball. But if that's what you.
Well, one of the good things about living down there in the metro area, you have plenty of it. They don't really travel that far down there, and when we come down to Des Moines from up here up north, they look at us like we're from outer space. So
fucking hillbillies.
Yeah, something like that.
I know the metropolis of Des Moines. It's out of control.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad I'm kind of torn. Part of me is glad you're playing a little bit, and part of me is like, maybe if we all stayed inside, we wouldn't be dicking with this virus. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. I will say with the virus thing, there has been some things they've done. They sterilized dugouts in between the game. They wiped down the ball, all that stuff. You're supposed to use your own helmets, your own bats, gloves, that type of stuff.
Oh, okay.
So there is some precautions that are being made. I will say this. I don't know that fans are social distancing the way they should be. Because, you get to the ballpark and it's just a good old ballpark. So you sit on top of, the next kid's parents. And I don't know that it's super safe that route, but I don't sit down at sports very often. I tend to pace. So I keep moving and make sure I'm not anybody's breathing path.
Okay. So how far does this go? How long do you do this?
How long do I coach?
Yeah.
How long do
because you're obviously not going to coach her in high school.
No, unless I, get a coaching degree and get hired by the district or something, which I have zero interest in.
I don't
doing.
foresee that happening.
I don't know. Some of us have too many skeletons in our closet to do that. But when does it stop? I don't know. When it stops is when my kid no longer has fun. The minute she says this isn't any fun anymore and I don't want to do this anymore is the minute she stops playing. And if I'm coaching at that time, that's when I stop coaching. Now, if it's in the middle of the season, obviously we commit until the end of the season. But I foresee this next year as a growing year for her, and I expect her to continue past this at this stage. If she decides that she wants me to help coach, then I will. If she says that she doesn't want me around, I'll go sit in the benches, in the stands,
and be the asshole that's yelling.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not. I pick my spots.
I don't buy it.
I pick my spots. I pick my spots.
Got to pick your battles, right?
That's right.
My hardest thing is going to be not to want to strangle the other parents. I can handle a bad call on the field. I can't handle some jag off just blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? That's what I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah, it's really hard to watch some parents just ride their kids.
Or just ones
really
that won't
shut
up. But just
yeah, that too.
I don't know.
That too. Fortunately, with softball, you can space yourself all the way around the diamond.
Yeah.
A lot of parents will sit out in center field. I mean, there's some parents that sit out in center field for a reason. So
okay. They can't be trusted.
Or
they want to get the hell away.
Yeah, that or they don't want to be heard.
Okay.
Too. So
right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't have a fancy wrap up for this, and I got a couple. I talked to your kids beforehand, and I have no idea where I'm going to plug that in. So maybe I'll plug it in at the end. Maybe I won't. Who knows? Okay. I'll figure it out in post production the next couple of days. But thanks for stopping by and blessing the mic with some interesting information. As far as the coaching stuff goes, because I know we mostly just talked about softball, but like I said, it still blows my mind because I remember growing up, hey, I live in this town, this is my team, and this is the shitty sponsor. and this is the terrible uniform, and this is, and you're going to play the same towns every year. It's kind of cool that it's evolved past that, because it's like if you want to put the time, effort, and money into it, you can really kind of take sports a lot further than you could when we came up.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just Chico's bail bonds anymore, man. I mean, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that.
It was so funny. Somebody made it was a pro wrestling guy I follow on Twitter, but it was a pro wrestling conversation. But somebody made a reference to a company calling them the Bad News Bears. And I'm like, does that make so and so Buttermaker then? And it just crickets. I just got crickets on Twitter. I was like, what? I mean, if you're old enough,
that's too bad.
Motherfucker, you're
that's
old enough to make
history.
the reference.
You have to know that.
Ugh, anyway, I was disappointed. All right, I don't have a fancy wrap up. Thanks for coming on and talking. Any words of wisdoms for some upcoming coaches? Bless them with your knowledge.
Yes, wisdom for upcoming coaches. Try not to take yourself too seriously. Make sure that you take your kids more serious than yourself. And secondly, understand that you're building future kind of traits and characteristics by what you're teaching them with work ethic. So if practice is screw around time and social time, then that's kind of how you're going to play. And that's pretty much what you can expect of it. That isn't to say that you have to be a drill sergeant, but I think respect goes both ways between player, coach, coach, player, and definitely between coach, parent. I don't know that the coaches always get all the respect that they deserve back, but just like anything with volunteering, if you don't like how it's being done, get your ass up and do it yourself.
All right, perfect. We're ending on that, dude. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bud. Later.
Hello.
What's up, kid?
Hi.
You ready to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you a couple quick questions, all right? And we'll just kind of go from there. It's not going to be a whole thing or anything, all right? So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what's your first name?
Addison Fuller.
Okay. So you've had the pleasure of having your father be a coach for you, correct? What sports has your father coached for you?
He coaches softball right now, and he used to coach my old basketball team as well.
Do you like having your dad as the coach?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Why do you like having your dad as the coach?
Because I feel like he pushes me more than any other coach would in, like, a good way to, like, make me successful and isn't, like, easy on me.
Tell me something that sucks about having your dad as the coach.
Because I get called coach's kid.
Okay. So you think you have to play a little bit better than everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Oh, hold on. God dang it. My cat was climbing up my back. Is he coaching anything for you now?
He's coaching my next year's softball team. He was not coaching me this year, but he is next year.
Okay. So what's bringing him back to the fold?
He got an offer from a different team, and he asked them to coach, and he asked me if I wanted to play again. And I said yes.
Oh, that sounds fancy. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Put the little one on.
All right, Adri, here you go. Hi.
Hi. What's going on?
Nothing much.
All right. We're gonna make this short and sweet. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. What's your name?
Adrian Fuller.
Okay. And what sport did your dad coach you in?
Softball.
Softball. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Do you like softball and you like having your dad as the coach?
Yes.
Why don't you play softball anymore?
I just didn't really enjoy it that much.
Is that your dad's fault?
No.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Do you think you'd ever play it again?
Probably not.
Okay. Is there any other sports you're interested in?
No, not really.
Good. Sports are overrated. All right. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. Brought to you by moonsaltmusic.info. Underground and independent hip-hop for the old heads. Free downloads available now. All show inquiries can be sent to middleagecrazypod@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Middle Age Pod. Call us at 515-478-3412. Ask for Janice. Middle Age Crazy is a Greg Valentine and Clarence J. Washington production.